Okay, so picture this.
Okay.
You're totally about to nail this job interview in English. And you're rocking the past tense storytelling.
Yeah.
And then, bam, your brain does like a system error on was versus were.
Right.
We've all been there.
Happens to the best of us.
Oh, tell me about it. So since you're diving deep into mastering English, we thought, why not tackle this tricky verb duo head on today? We've got all your lesson notes and podcast excerpts right here, ready to be unpacked. Now, you wouldn't think something as simple as the past tense of to be would cause so much trouble, but it's a surprisingly common stumbling block for English learners.
It really is. It's funny because like most verbs in English, you
Right.
just put like an ed on the end.
Yeah.
To the past tense. It has to be all fancy.
Oh, it's far too fancy for its own good, I think. It's got a whole wardrobe change depending on who's doing the action, which is just not necessary.
Yeah, it's a lot to keep track of.
So the lesson, it kicks off with the basic rules, right? Was for singular, were for plural. Easy peasy. But then it throws us a curveball because I breaks the mold by always partnering up with were.
Yes. That always gets people.
It does.
And it's funny because the lesson doesn't just tell us, right? It like shows us
Yeah.
with examples.
Yeah.
Like, my car was parked here.
Okay.
Like, you can really visualize it. It helps you remember.
You're learning grammar without even realizing it.
Exactly.
Sneaky like that. But here's where things get really interesting. The lesson throws in this awesome pronunciation tip for were, because apparently we should be aiming for more of a U sound, almost like a shortened or, which makes sense because were and where can sound awfully similar when spoken quickly.
Yeah, they do. And the lesson actually helps us out even more by connecting the pronunciation of weren't to aren't.
Okay.
Because they both use at-ern't sound.
Okay, so it's like a pronunciation 2-for-1 deal. I like it. But the real stroke of genius, I think, is the trick-or-treat memory hook.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
It's like grammar meets Halloween. Who knew?
It's all about creating those like memorable associations, I think.
Right.
And that one really sticks.
Oh, I'm already picturing myself saying trick-or-treat every time I use were in a sentence.
Okay, so we've got the basics down. We've got pronunciation covered. Where does this deep dive take us next?
Well, now that we know kind of like the building blocks, we can see how was and were kind of operate in the wild.
Okay.
Especially in questions and negative sentences.
Okay.
Because that's where even, more confident English speakers can sometimes trip up.
Right. Okay, let's do it. Okay, so we've nailed the basics of was and were. We've even tackled that tricky pronunciation.
Right.
But how does this all play out when we start throwing questions into the mix?
Yeah, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Because like a lot of people, they want to they overcomplicate things.
Right.
Because they think, oh, past tense, got to add did in there.
Right. But the lesson makes it really clear that you do not need to add did.
So you wouldn't say, did you were at the party.
Exactly.
Which I have totally said before, by the way.
It happens.
It does. But okay, so much more simple.
Right.
Were you at the party?
Exactly. Simple as that.
Done. See, I need my grammar anxiety just went down a notch.
Yes, exactly.
But let's be honest, sometimes we like to be a little negative.
Yeah.
Right.
Of course.
So how do was and were handle those situations?
They handle it like prose, like natural,
Okay.
Because when we're speaking naturally, we would say wasn't and weren't,
Yeah, it's those contractions, right?
Exactly.
Which the podcast host does beautifully, I might add.
Oh, yeah.
It's very natural sounding. It's like you're just having a chat about wasn't and weren't. Okay, but before we get too comfortable, I hear there's a to-be-born surprise waiting for us in this lesson.
Right.
And honestly, this one always throws me for a loop.
Right. Because it's
because you're born in the past.
Yeah. It's this always refers to the past.
Yeah.
Even though
being born is the start of your life.
It's your origin story.
It's true, yeah. It's like saying, I was born to be wild eventually.
Right.
But right now I'm a baby.
Exactly.
Okay, so always in the past.
Always in the past.
Got it. But the lesson does connect it to that iconic Queen lyric.
Yes.
I was born to love you.
So good.
Talk about a memorable grammar lesson.
Right. And it shows you
You had me at Queen. Okay.
It shows you how it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Grammar.
It's true. It's true.
It was in our favorite songs.
Suddenly I'm not just learning grammar, I'm reliving my teenage angst.
Exactly.
Okay, but speaking of leveling up,
Yes.
this is where the lesson takes those core was and were concepts
Right.
and kind of weaves them into more complex structures.
Exactly.
Okay, hit me with your best shot, grammar gurus.
Past continuous.
Ooh.
Yeah. So we're talking about actions that were in progress in the past.
Okay, so we're talking, I was studying when the phone rang.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Got it. And then it's like, it takes it even a step further.
Okay.
It's like, okay, you learned past continuous, you learned to be born.
Yeah.
Now combine them.
Okay.
Let's see what you got.
Yeah.
So it'd be something like, my sister was 2 years old when I was born.
Okay, wow. We are on fire now.
I know, right?
Combining tenses like a true grammar ninja. Okay, but let's be real. All this knowledge is great,
Yeah.
but how do we actually use it in the real world?
Right. And that's where this lesson is great because they talk about,
Okay.
how to actually apply it.
Okay.
And they suggest things like translation exercises,
Okay.
which is really, really good for solidifying.
So not just understanding it, but actually using it.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
It's like learning how to ride a bike.
Okay.
You can read the manual all you want, but until you get on the bike,
Yeah.
it's not going to happen.
It's true. It's all about the practice.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I'm convinced. Translation exercises it is. But before we go full grammar workout mode, let's
Yeah.
hit the pause button for a second, reflect on what we've learned today.
Yeah.
I mean, we covered a lot of ground.
We did.
From like the basic rules to like pretty nuanced applications of was and were.
Yeah. And I think like the biggest takeaway for me is just knowing these little things can really like up your game,
Yeah.
your fluency,
Absolutely.
and just how confident you feel speaking.
It's about expressing yourself clearly and confidently in the past tense
Exactly.
without those little grammar gremlins like holding you back.
Exactly. Like you're owning your story.
Yeah,
You're sharing it with the world.
I love it. I'm feeling very empowered.
Yes.
Okay, so we've got the power of practice. We've got the importance of practical application.
Yes.
What else does this deep dive have in store for us?
Well, it ends on a really important point, I think.
Okay.
Which is like, don't forget,
Yeah.
was is still important for the first person singular.
Yes. Like, it's easy to get caught up in the were excitement.
Right. Were is a lot more exciting.
It is more exciting. But, I is like that quiet champion,
Right.
always there to save the day.
Exactly. And it seems like a small detail, but it's really not.
Right. Right.
If you can get that right,
It makes a difference.
it makes you sound so much more natural and fluent.
So to wrap our heads around this whole was versus were saga, it's like I was is the lone wolf,
Right.
always sticking to its singular guns, right?
Yeah.
But everyone else is either rocking solo with was or teaming up with were, depending on the company they keep.
Exactly.
Makes sense, right?
It does. It does. And, like your lesson reminds us, practice is key.
Yeah.
It's like learning a new dance move.
Awkward at first, but once you get it,
Yeah.
it's like second nature.
And speaking of practice, those vocabulary lists that you've got,
Yeah.
they're like a treasure trove of was and were opportunities.
Oh, for sure.
Like,
yeah.
I'm just looking at these and I'm like,
Yeah.
I was in Madrid 2 years ago.
Perfect example.
We were a good team. Like,
Oh,
even
yeah.
that classic question,
Yeah.
where were you?
There it is.
It's everywhere.
It is. It's inescapable.
It's true.
But that's what makes it so interesting, right?
It does. It does.
Because you start to realize,
yeah,
like, how much we actually use it.
it's true. You just don't think about it.
Right. And we don't even realize,
Yeah.
like, how important it is.
It's true. It's true.
Until we get it wrong.
Until it's like, wait a minute, was or were?
Oh, okay.
And then you're like,
Help.
I need to listen to that deep dive again.
Exactly.
Brush up on my skills.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. I've had those moments, like, in the middle of a conversation.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like,
And you freeze.
I freeze, like, deer in the headlights. I'm like, I know I'm messing this up right now.
It's the worst, right?
It's the worst.
But that's the beauty of like doing these deep dives and everything.
Yes,
Is it kind of like takes the pressure off.
it does.
It's like, okay, like you can make mistakes.
Yeah.
We all make mistakes. It's part of learning.
It's how we get better. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, you know what? I am feeling much more confident
Me too.
about my was and were prowess.
Yeah, me too.
I think it's safe to say that we can officially retire our grammar anxiety for the day.
Yes, let's do it.
Trade those grammar gremlins for some well-deserved confidence.
I love it.
And who knows, maybe even a few rounds of trick or treat just for good measure.
Oh, definitely.
Because why not? It's never too early for a little Halloween fun, right?
Never, never.
All right, thanks for diving deep with us into this surprisingly tricky corner of the English language.
As always, it was a pleasure.
Until next time, happy practicing, everyone.